because I started with the worst physique, by far the worst physique out of all my friends. It was very, very skinny. And the reason I have a better physique isn't because I have this magical training program. It's because I haven't quit. I've been lifting since I was like 13 consistently. I made my own lifting plan like 14. I was in 6th grade doing Insanity. And not quitting is, I think, the coolest thing that you can look back on.
Go to the gym to train. Be intentional with what you're trying to do. Follow a workout program, and you're trying to beat last week.
A lot of people who get into the gym have some form of body dysmorphia. And so you never accomplish what you're going after. There's always something to improve. Tyler's calves, not big enough. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's always something. And so that can really hold you back from living the rest of your life.
Welcome back to Recommended Daily Value. I'm your host, Tyler Woodward. In today's episode, I'm happy to sit down with my friends and now business partners, the Strong Sistas. For those of you that don't know, the Strong Sistas own a regenerative farm known as Angel Acres, where they produce various types of food, from everything from sourdough to low PUFA pork and chicken and beef and lamb. It's an awesome company that they're running. I highly recommend you check them out if you haven't already. But before we dive into the episode, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys in there. Ashley Armstrong, Sarah Armstrong, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
We're doing great, Tyler, but we will say as well, welcome to our show.
Ooh.
To the Rooted in Resilience podcast.
So Tyler hosts the Recommended Daily Value, RDV podcast. You guys should definitely check it out. And then if you're on Tyler's podcast, we are the Strong Sistas, and we host the Rooted in Resilience podcast.
And today we're doing a merger. We're trading, swapping gears, because we are excited to announce our new joint product together, Train to Change.
So some of you guys may have been aware that Sarah and I had a strong training workout program, workout app, and it's been going well. People have made a ton of amazing progress, but we wanted to take it to another level. And so insert the collaboration with Tyler, who's right here. Tyler and ourselves were very aligned with exercise principles, but also nutrition and pro-metabolic principles. And so I think all three of us make a really great team, and it's just going to lead to a better user experience. We've got a new and improved workout app, so it's so seamless for you to just walk into the gym and your app is loaded up on your phone. You don't have to think about it, because we all know it's better to follow a workout program, not just wing it every time you go into the gym. And then we provide a ton of educational resource modules so that you not only get the workouts, but you also understand the why. And when we understand the why, that's when we're actually going to make meaningful lifestyle changes. So the whole goal of Train to Change is to implement exercise principles that will help you change your physique, your metabolism, and make it fit into your life, not take over your life.
Can you clarify, is Train to Change like an online workout program? Am I being coached one-on-one by you guys? Are you guys doing individualized programming? Or is this kind of like I get a random program each month and then I just follow that with no guidance?
It's basically pre-programmed training written by Ashley and I, and you can choose to lift between 2 to 4 days a week. And we'll also provide you with basically dripped out over a course of months, everything you need to know about your gym experience, including, gym basics, everything from what weight to use or to start with, to how to eat to maximize your muscle growth and increase your metabolism over time.
So it's a muscle building workout program. And what Tyler and I have done is we've written out 12 months, and we take someone through like different progression. And so your workout, you have a planned workout for a certain period of time, and then we change it up. But the whole focus is
that's awesome.
Building muscle. And there's personalization where you can choose which exercise feels best, but also works best in your at-home or gym. So we have an at-home and gym option.
Okay.
So it's very similar to what we were doing with strong training. It's just now just like a level up. We've leveled up.
Leveled up.
Okay, cool.
And I think that Tyler brings like a unique male perspective to
Definitely.
Training as well. So now you males that listen, we've got workout programs specifically designed for men and specifically designed for women. So like as an example, I have no desire to train forearms or traps, whereas Tyler likes to train forearms and traps. And you men like various other muscle groups.
I mean, what about your neck? Have you seen those people doing like the neck?
Oh, I train neck.
Okay, well,
no neck for me. I'll take a bigger booty.
Yeah, not all those will be mandatory. I don't think any guys like training forums. It's just a few of us who actually are willing to do it. But so yeah, we'll basically give you everything you need to go to the gym to get the best results possible while not stressing your body out. And then we also have a full exercise tutorial that we've recorded with a bunch of step-by-step walkthrough on how to perform each exercise, and basically everything we wish we knew when we started lifting.
Which is the topic of today's podcast discussion. Truthfully, Tyler, I think that this discussion is one of the most important things, because if I reflect back on my health journey, I think that a lot of my health challenges started when I started taking exercise way too seriously as a young girl. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of influences too that play into this. Like if you are suddenly, scrolling Instagram and you see all the, like everybody will share their like workout split or random exercises to try. So it can be really overwhelming. But I remember getting on Instagram in like 2014, which was when
Sarah was one of the OG Instagram users.
And it was just, there was this culture that was all about like, you pretty much went 6 to 7 days a week. It was really not about rest. You followed like a blueprint program, like bodybuilding.com stuff,
Yeah.
And I mean, I think like that is good for, I guess, just like a basic bodybuilding program, but it doesn't really take into consideration like the holistic view that we all have, where like you do need to prioritize rest. You do need to think about your nutrition more. And you don't have to go 6 to 7 days a week and like do excessive amounts of volume and hypertrophy to make results or to get good results. Like you're more than likely doing too much. And so that was what I always did too much. Like always doing too much.
Always doing too much.
So if there was one thing I could tell my younger self is like less is more would be like the main thing.
So I have a question for both of you, and this is how I got into fitness. Did you guys get into health through fitness? Like you wanted to see better results or whatever, and it was that your gateway to nutrition and health?
That's a really good question.
P90X.
I did. I was an insanity, man.
Yeah, that was my gateway. Yeah.
Okay.
Gateway. I think
Gateway
like,
drug.
there's some focus on nutrition because it's like they hammer in on protein. They're like selling protein shakes. It's it whoever you're thinking of when you were watching those P90X or whatever video fitness thing, they're always like selling a protein shake at the end. So I think like that kind of showed me like, oh, you need protein to build muscle, but it really didn't go any further than that. That almost led to worse, like clean eating, bodybuilding, nutrition principles, just like as you can imagine, like chicken and rice or tilapia and lettuce. So
tilapia and asparagus, probably.
Tilapia and asparagus.
That's the proper pairing.
So yeah, that was around age 14, I'd say. How about
way
you?
too. So I got into it from sports because I was like very much obsessed with being the best athlete that I could. At the time, it was soccer. And I was obsessed with Mia Hamm. And so it definitely got started for me with just trying to be the best athlete as I could. But gosh, I went to the extreme from that. But that's how I got into exercise initially. What about you, Tyler?
I was really young. I had back pain when I was like a 5th grader. So my mom was like, oh, you should start working out your core. So every day before school, I would start doing like sit-ups, and then it just became like a whole ab circuit. And then I got into insanity. And then I started lifting, and then was like, all right, I need to get toned and muscular because, you can't get toned from lifting weights. So then I was doing lifting for like 2 hours a day and then coming home and doing insanity. And that only lasted for a couple weeks because the body can only take so much, even as like a 8th grader or a freshman in college freshman in high school. But I was, so yeah, that's how I got into it. I luckily like went off the edge like too soon. So that didn't last very long. Then I kind of went into Kino Body, which is like 3 days a week lifting, which was kind of a nice break, but that was how I got into it.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that sounds pretty similar. Like way too hard, too fast. And then they fall off of it. But fortunately you didn't quit, because I feel like a lot of people, when they go way too hard, too fast, it's like way too much. They have DOMs and then they quit.
Yeah.
And so at least you found a better route. So I'm excited to talk about what that looked like. But yeah, so after my P90X, I kind of got into like the Fitspo bodybuilding type of stuff. So like 5, 6, 7 day splits at the gym, going at like 4 a.m. before high school fasted. And I'm like already underweight. So, um, so then after that, like I'm thinking about the timeline of going to college. At some point in my freshman year of college, I found powerlifting. And so I have to like sync to my mic. um, I started doing what's that program where it's like
5x5,
5x5, like strong
SBD.
One of the like strong lifts 5x5 programs. I'm not sure the exact one. So that was probably the first time I actually like prioritized just strength. And I did see a lot of progress from doing the main lifts, but it's still, if I were to segment my goals with what I was actually doing in the gym, they didn't align still, because like I wanted this fit physique, but I was solely training like the main lifts. And yes, those can go hand in hand. But if I really was thinking about like, oh, I want to grow my glutes, I wanted to grow my shoulders, and like I wanted to get a stronger, I don't know, quads or something, I didn't need to be doing like 5x5 bench press, 5x5 squat, 5x5 deadlift. And that's it. Like that wasn't really, do you get what I'm saying? It's like, it still wasn't focused enough to get the most bang for my buck.
Okay.
So I was just shooting around the bush.
Okay, so maybe Sarah can start us off. I think it's very clear that we've all done all extremes of exercise, like literally have tried it all. Sarah did a bikini competition.
Keto bikini competition.
Keto
Sarah,
bikini.
Oh, fat adapted. What's the right word?
I think that's it.
Hashtag ketosis.
That's what they say. Yeah.
Fat burner. Hashtag fat burner.
Yeah.
Fat burner. Sarah, if you could go back to when you just started your fitness journey at a 14-year-old, what would you tell her?
I would say eat enough, eat more, please. Like, and I mean, even for people like I was a chubby kid, so like I had eating disorder background, and like that was a big fuel, was to not be fat. But if I were to have understood like physiology and a lot of Ray Peat's concepts and everything in the bioenergetic space, obviously like what 14-year-old is blessed enough to know that stuff, like maybe we can make it more regular. But if I would have understood the body more, and like how important muscle is and what it requires to actually build muscle, so the amount of calories needed, especially for a young, very active person, I would have just told myself, please eat more food, eat more carbs, and that should be your big priority, is that plus rest. Obviously train hard, but rest adequately, instead of eating less and training more.
I have a question for both of you. Did you guys train together at all, or was it pretty separate journeys as the Strong Sisters?
We
weren't friends in high school.
No.
So
like,
we're
not at all friends. But you guys are 6 years apart, right?
I was a senior and she was a freshman in high school.
So growing up, she would like really, she was not pleasant to me. I just remember like being locked in cold showers. And now I think about it, like, how could I be locked in a shower? But she locked me in cold showers. And so anyway, in my freshman year of high school and her senior year, I would like go and get very drunk with her friends. Very bad influence. But once she left was when we both started to kind of go on our separate fitness journeys. So I started down my like obsession with eating, like very eating disorder mindset. And she started down like, I want to be a really good golfer at college. And so virtually through text and stuff, we kind of started to talk about like different training programs and different, like if it fits your macro foods and stuff. And that's how we became friends. So then after she graduated undergrad and I was going to college, then we moved in together and basically did everything the same after that.
So we became close by finding our own fitness journeys while I went away to college and she started down high school path.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You were a D1 golfer, or she didn't say D1, but you golfed in college?
I did.
She was a D1 golfer.
I was a D1 golfer.
Ooh.
I played golf at the University of Notre Dame, and I, at a period for a number of years, I wanted to be a professional golfer.
Did not know that. You guys keep a lot on the wraps over there at the Nurse Cooperative Farm at Angel Acres.
So that was like my main focus for so long, and education too, but then started to realize that I actually didn't want to do that. So then
in college though, she would play like she would have like morning workouts for her golf team. then school, play 18 holes, and then she would work out again for herself.
Regrets. Lots of regrets.
Yeah.
I did a lot of dumb things, and my list is going to be exhaustive of what I wish I would have told myself, but let's let Tyler go.
Well, that's not even that. I remember when I was in high school, we had these really bad basketball training programs, and I was like, dude, this isn't going to do anything for my muscle building. So I would go and train after. So, but it's also like, there's really no choice there, because it's like, you know, you have to do the crappy program, but like then you're just sacrificing everything you want to do.
Yeah.
So I see that tough. Well, this is tough. I would try to tell myself to have less of an ego. I remember this personal trainer coming up to me, and I was like sumo deadlifting. And you know, like the meme of like the fish pole, like how you're not supposed to deadlift?
Yes.
I was that fish pole. Like I had no idea. I was a very uncoordinated kid. I played a lot of sports, but I was always a kid that just worked hard and got injured a lot lifting. I had a really bad shoulder impingement. I could barely like lift my arm. I herniated a disc. I had to like use my arms to get out of my desk in high school at one point, and that's when I finally went to the doctor. And so I just kept getting hurt. But also I would tell myself that, and this is like everyone tells you this and you'll never believe it until you see it, the process is just painfully slow. You only see people that are like have these great physiques. You didn't see the 15 years of work they put in.
Yeah.
So for me, I think, you know, I started measuring calories pretty early, but I would kind of tell myself like, you need to do these things to see progress. And this is what it should look like on a measurable scale. Because if you don't measure, you kind of are just sitting in nowhere land, as in you don't know what's happening, because you don't really see, like I did a bunch of bulks and cuts, and I probably wouldn't do that either looking back. But like that's like over a 10-month scale. You're like, oh yeah, now I'm ripped and I've put on a little bit of muscle. It kind of drives you nuts in the meantime when you're like, am I doing all the right things? Like, am I doing enough volume? Can I do more and more and more? And you just keep questioning yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's going to be an Instagram reel clip right there.
So
I think that that's a really important thing for people to understand is these types of physiques changes that you see just take very long time. And there's actually quite a bit of steroid use happening as well across both female and male fitness industries. And so we're exposed to these like absolutely ripped, shredded, really muscular physiques. And like you said, how can you show in a 15-second clip on Instagram the amount of months, years it took to build that amount of muscle, and how much food it took to build that much muscle, how much food they actually consumed? So we're also obsessed with these like quick fixes, overnight things, weekly timescales. But if one were to instead focus more on years, and that's very hard for people to do, that's when we can actually be a little bit more understanding of ourselves, and we don't put ourselves through these huge swings in bulk cut, bulk cut, bulk cut, bulk cut.
Yeah. Well, when you say ego, did you mean more like you weren't willing to take advice from somebody else, or? Oh
yeah, I interrupted myself. So this personal trainer walked over to me and was like, hey, like, can I give you a couple tips? And I was like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, and I just had horrendous form. Like looking back, like I could pretty much, I mean, I know how I herniated my disc. It luckily wasn't deadlifting, but I was just so uncoordinated. I think a lot of times it was because I was trying to, you know, fit a square peg in a round hole. So I just have a very lanky body. So trying to do certain exercises and not knowing how to do them didn't fit. But I just like wasn't really eager to take advice, which is ironic because you like someone on Instagram, you're like, oh, that makes sense. But some guy actually trying to help you.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think another thing too is like, so there's a fine line between like ego and insecurity. And like, I know for myself, it took a lot of courage for me to work, like to get into the gym in the first place, especially as a female. And like, even when I first went to University of Michigan, and I was just my freshman year of college, I went to an off-campus gym because I was like so afraid. Afraid's not even the right word, but like, I guess insecure, scared to lift in front of other people. Like I felt like I needed to be at a certain level first in order to earn my space in the weight room. And I mean, this is where powerlifting actually was very helpful for me because I became like extremely strong, and it was very confident boosting. But I can understand, like, this is a completely different topic, but for females at least, and I'm sure this applies to males too, but there is like, yes, you can have an ego, but you can also just be so insecure that you actually can't reach your goals because you never put yourself in the right position to be like doing the right exercises.
But that's an important lesson, because something that I wish, and I'm sure you wish you could have told your younger self, was no one else cares.
Oh,
Like no one in the gym is actually watching you.
yeah, right. Like that personal trainer probably had like all of the best intentions. They
Yeah.
were just like, hey, this dude, like, I want to help this dude out. But you were like, no, man.
I know what I'm talking about. Little did he know.
Yeah.
I do want to make a comment on Ashley's, what she said about thinking in years, because that is something that's really, really hard to do. And, you know, I'm turned 25, I think. It's still impossible for me to do that. But what I think, and this has been my mindset for life recently, is if you know what you need to do to get where you want to be, you can think in days, you can think in hours, and then you can check these things off the list. So like if it's progressive overloads, like I'm going to try and go up in a rep this week, you know you're doing the right things that will get you to where you want to be in years. So it's not this kind of abstract goal of where, you know, and also it's really hard to set abstract goals because it's like, especially in the physique world, it's like, I want to look like this. And you can't just picture yourself with your ideal body. So you're picturing someone else generally. And, you know, that person could be using anabolic steroids, but they're just also not you. You don't have, you have different muscle insertions, and you probably aren't going to be paid to lift and diet all year round and have a personal chef that makes your life easy. So the only person you can compare yourself to is really who you were last week or who you were last year.
You bring up a really good point. I guess understanding that the things that you want to see could take time scale of years, but that doesn't mean that we should just throw out day-to-day routines. Just have a really solid understanding of what it actually takes to get there. But unfortunately, I think that that's where so many people are lost, because there's so much confusion and differing of opinions throughout the fitness and the nutrition space. It's very hard to sort through as an Instagram user these days.
Yeah.
Everyone says something different.
Yeah. And you make a good point too about like comparing your, like, thinking of what you want to look like basically, and using like people on Instagram as like your inspiration. And like just taking our bodies, for example, we have SpongeBob cores, we have long legs and short ass torsos. So like that requires one specific like ways of doing different exercises, like squatting, for example. Squatting's a nightmare like with a barbell for us. Whereas, you know, if we were to position our feet differently or do a different exercise that replicates the same, essentially same movement, we'd get more progress from that. So like you can't just look at somebody and like duplicate their program and their exact diet and everything. Like that's where this train to change and strong training, like that type of programming where you can take into consideration somebody's goals and like their limitations is so valuable. And when I was younger, I would just follow blueprint programs. Like I never got any sort of customization for myself.
So Tyler brought this up earlier, trying to fit, what is it? A round
square peg in a round hole.
Square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
That's us squatting. We look like we are going to snap our backs.
It's the Lane Norton good morning squat.
And guess what? It's okay. Not every, like, you don't have to squat to build muscle. And this is something that I really like about the Train to Change program is you don't have to force yourself to do certain exercises that don't work for you, because there's always a different exercise to build that same muscle group. And you can find exercises that work well for your unique limb mechanics. We are all built a little bit differently. I got really long femurs, so squatting isn't going to grow my quads. It's not. So I need to do leg press or hack squat or set up the exercise slightly differently so that I can actually target my quads. And so that's a lesson that I wish I would have told myself is you can be a little bit more intentional with your exercises. You don't have to do exactly what these other people are saying, because someone with really short legs and short quads, they're going to build massive quads using squats. Squats are going to work really well for them. They don't work well for me. So I hurt myself, just like you, Tyler, trying to squat. I'm the worst squatter. She's worst. Very bad. Like I'm the worst.
Me
and
too.
so I hurt my lower back trying to push more squats because I was just doing powerlifting. Whereas if I would have taken a little bit more of a smarter exercise selection approach, I wouldn't have had that injury. So I think that that's a big misconception is people think that in order to push hard in the gym, you're going to risk injury, but that's not the case. If you do smart exercise selection and are a little bit more strategic, and we all like using machines. Machines give you that stability so that you don't risk injury and you can still push yourself the necessary amount to actually initiate muscle growth. And so I wish I would have been like, hey girl, the Smith machine is okay to use. You don't have to go do barbell back squats.
Yeah, as like a powerlifter, the Smith machine is just so like off limits. And now it's like the only thing.
Me too. That's actually how I hurt myself on the Smith machine, ironically, and I hadn't touched it for years. But I think the principle and the reason was because I didn't lock it out and the bar fell on the floor and then my back caved in. So don't be distracted and just lock the bar out and be safe. But I think the principle here is train muscles, not movements. So the converse of that or the opposite of that is Sarah with her powerlifting, they have to train for SBD, squat, bench, and deadlift, which means it doesn't matter how ugly of a how ugly of a squatter you look like. I always say I look like a baby giraffe when I try and squat. It's not pretty. But so like I for years was like, all right, I gotta squat. And then I was like, all right, let me front squat. And then let me put plates under my heels and then, try all the ankle mobility and foam rolling before. And then one day, I don't know when this happened, but it was like, hey, wait, you can use this squat. Like you can use a leg press or a hack squat. And I have not touched the barbell since when I'm trying to build muscle for at least squatting.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really a good point. That's what I was getting at when I was like, not getting the most bang out of your, like, just doing movements because I thought I had to, like you said, is just, that should be a lesson to everybody is like, do not just follow a basic program. And if you feel uncomfortable doing a movement, that's probably a good sign you shouldn't be doing that movement.
Mm-hmm.
And if muscle growth is your focus, Tyler said it perfectly, train muscles, not movements. And so being smart with what exercises you're selecting such that the body's only choice to move the weight is the target muscle.
Yeah.
And so when you think about physics and forces, then that becomes a little bit easier with what types of exercise are actually going to challenge the muscle that you want to grow rather than just trying to move weight just to move weight. Because that's where I got injured. I really wasn't building as much muscle as I wanted to. And if powerlifting is your goal, like keep going, like that's great. But I don't want to be a powerlifter anymore. My focus isn't to just lift as much weight as I can for a single weight. I want to be able to continue to build muscle in a way that doesn't harm my health.
Yeah. I actually really loved powerlifting, but powerlifting in your early 20s is way different. And I'm in my late 20s now, but it just feels different on the body now. So like when I go to think, I want to go back and do sumo deadlift and try, my 3-rep max, it just doesn't feel pretty anymore. So then I take a step back and think about like, what are my actual goals? And those have to do with, physique, longevity, improving my health, and enjoying my workouts and not feeling horrible the day after. So picking movements that I can accomplish those goals with is key for me now.
Yeah, it's not mutually exclusive. It's not one thing or the other. You don't have to say, I have to prioritize health, so I can't exercise. It's not that way. There is a more appropriate middle ground where you can fit exercise in and not harm your health. But the way that I did things for so much of my life, I just dug myself into a hole because of my exercise and nutrition routine. And that's why it's so scary to me to see these younger girls continuing down these extreme exercise paths because they're really setting themselves up for health challenges in their late 20s, early 30s. And that is where I wish I could just shake my younger Ashley teenage self and tell her these things like eat more and you don't have to exercise. You shouldn't be exercising every single day. You don't have to achieve the physique that you want.
Yeah. So you're up, Ashley.
Okay. I would say number one is how important rest is. It's almost 50% of the muscle building equation. So when you go to the gym, you don't actually build the muscle there. You're creating a stimulus on your muscle that your body has to adapt to outside the gym. So you go to the gym and the goal is to put a challenge on your muscle such that you send a signal to your body, hey, you need to add more sarcomere units, some more motor units to your muscle because of that force challenge. Your body can't do that if you continuously stress out that muscle every single day of the week. You need to give your body time to let it make those adaptations and build that muscle. And like we talked about in the beginning, I was queen, and so was Sarah. We were queens of doing more, and that isn't good for health. We're always pushed with like more and more steps every day, or how many times you can go to the gym, workouts. Like that's a dangerous path because then you kind of get obsessed with doing more and more. And instead you need to be more efficient with the time that you're there. And that's what I wish, if I would have just done like 2 or 3 workouts a week growing up and ate more rather than trying to work out every single day and eat less, I would be in a better state of health now. And so that's really frustrating to me, like reflecting back and just cringing at all your mistakes that you did. But mine would definitely probably be the importance of rest, because that's when your muscle is actually making the repairs that you want it to. And unfortunately, I didn't understand how fatigue can impact performance for days. So if you work out on a Monday and you do like heavy leg press, like that's going to cause some fatigue to your body. And it's going to negatively impact your performance on Tuesday, especially if you're not eating enough. And it could even go into Wednesday or Thursday, depending on other things that you're doing in your life. So really stressing the importance of resting to give your body the time that it needs to make the compensations to build up more muscle mass. That would probably be my number one.
So what would that look like, the change? So I know you kind of went into this a little bit, but you were training, let's say 6 days a week, or what were you doing back then? And how would you make that change physically?
So that's the thing. Like, I didn't really follow a set program in the beginning because it was kind of just the more, the better, right? Like there's this mindset of people say, oh, I went to the gym today, right? What does that mean? Like, what does that mean? You went to the gym, but what did you do? Right? Did you just go in and just move? You just exercised? Well, this is something that we bring up in Train to Change is go to the gym to train. Be intentional with what you're trying to do. Follow a workout program, and you're trying to beat last week. Because when we are following a program and we are measuring progress and trying to beat progress from the week prior, that's actually increasing the amount of challenges on your muscle. And that's what's sending a signal to the body, because you don't build muscle with one workout. You don't build muscle with 2 workouts. You build muscle with continuing a program for months on end. It's consistency. It's not like a one-time thing. So there's this general mindset of people where they just say like, I exercised today. And essentially what they're saying is I went to the gym and moved around. And that's great. Like general movement is good, but exercise is a U-shaped curve when it comes to humans. Upside down U-shaped curve where on one side, if you're not moving at all, you're not going to see health benefits. But what happens to a U? It goes back down again. And so on the other extreme, if you're doing way too much, there's actually documented health challenges that come with that, because we're humans. We aren't superheroes. And when you push volume, when you push exercise like way to the extreme, that's a huge energy demand. And we all do so many things in our life. And so if we're just pulling from our already low energy states, over time, that's going to lead to loss of function in our body. And I experienced that firsthand. Years of under eating, years of over exercising put me in a huge calorie deficit buildup that led to loss of function in my body. And if I would have just been a little bit more mild, intentional, and smarter with my training and ate more, allowed my body to rest, I wouldn't have been in that energy deficit. So I think it's always important to consider that every type of movement that we do requires energy, and we should be relatively active, but we shouldn't just be exercising to exercising, like Orange Theory HIIT classes 6 days a week or something crazy like that, because that's just pulling energy from you. The way that I view exercise now is I want to be able to do something in the gym that creates a positive adaptation in my body for days to come. So if you do an orange hit theory class, it's just basically burning calories, right? But if you go do an intentional muscle building exercise, you trained your muscles in a way that's going to lead to a muscular adaptation that's going to improve your metabolism, improve your physique as your body makes those changes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think an important point around that, though, is also just the context, because, and it's a blessing and a curse, because I'm very grateful for all the information that's on social media right now, and trying to amalgamate all that, and try and build a picture for yourself is really hard. But when we started lifting, there wasn't a lot of information, I feel like. So you had a couple of Athlete X, I remember, was a big one for me. I don't know, who were you guys' favorite influencers back in the day?
Oh gosh, that's fun to think about.
It evolved over time. It was like started as like bikini competitors, and then it was different really strong powerlifters.
Honestly, we followed Lane Norton for a really long time.
Lane Norton.
We did a lot of
Honestly,
DUP program, daily undulating periodization.
Katie.
Oh, Katie Ann.
Katie Ann.
She's definitely gone through a similar to us, kind of like. Well, she was so much.
Us in power building for a while.
That's cool.
I liked power building. I think we've talked a lot about a lot of our mistakes, but there also were really, really good things that we did. So we should talk about the good things too, eventually.
But what I was getting at with that is just, I don't know, Katie Ann or whatever bikini competitor or bodybuilder. Well, again, they might be on anabolic steroids, yada, yada, yada. But they might also just they might be lifting 7 days a week, and then they don't get off the couch, which is a much, like, if you're going to talk about a stress bucket, their only stress is the gym. And that's your job as a professional bodybuilder, just to get as much muscle as possible. And then you pretty much, maybe you get some cardio in, get some steps or ride a bike a little bit. And then you sit in your ass and then have someone spoon feed you food all day. So you don't have to lift your arm and burn that extra energy that you don't need to.
You keep saying, is that a thing? Like people are fed?
Oh no, I'm joking. I'm joking. Have I said that twice?
you said personal chef, and now I'm thinking like somebody just sits on the couch like as a robot.
Well, even now, but you don't even need a personal chef, right? So there's all these meal planning services, and every bodybuilder is sponsored by one, because why wouldn't you? So now they have their microwave meal, and that's it.
You bring up a really good point, Tyler. At one point in our journey, when we were doing powerlifting, our only form of exercise throughout the entire day was just going to the gym. Yeah. And so then at the end of the day, we're at 2,000 steps, and it's that's not normal.
That was a bad thing.
That's an important distinction of general, just movement throughout the day, of going on walks with your dogs, spending time in nature, being outside, going on more regular light walks to have a relatively consistent activity level of 8 to 10,000 steps, something like that. And then strategic strength training sessions mixed into that. That's a really good point. Being more generally just active. But I guess I don't even consider walking like a form of exercise, but it can be taken to the extreme. We've been there.
Also, the inverse, though, is if you're lifting 6 days a week and then you're trying to get 15,000 steps a day, and then you're also in a calorie deficit. So they work on both sides. Yeah. We've all been there. And then, me adding some extra cardio in because you got to get shape, or, you go home and do your ab workout because you don't do abs in the gym or something. All of that stuff adds up.
Yeah. Now that you said the ab thing twice, I remember in high school, abs before bed. I would before I could get into bed, I had to do 100 sit-ups.
Guys, ab training, I think to a certain degree is helpful, but you're not going to, sit-ups are not going to bring you abs. That really is a lot more about total body.
Abs are made in the kitchen.
Abs are made in the kitchen. And so that's a pretty consistent trend that happens with members that have come into strong training, wanting to focus on abs. And I think that's great. We should do general core strengthening exercises, but whether or not we can't spot train, you can't fat spot train on your body. And so the amount of body fat on your body that's what's going to show your abs. You doing crunches is not going to magically show your abs.
I do think it is worth. So this is something that I've changed my perspective on. I used to think abs and calves I have a funny story about calves, but we're just made in the kitchen. It was all genetics, nothing you can really do other than lose body fat. And I do think abs are actually worth training, especially for a dude, maybe not so much for a woman, but just because they will grow like any other muscle. You don't train them in the, abs before bed, 100 sit-ups thing that everyone did, or like the circuit with the planks. You train them, you progressively overload them. You want strong abs, and that will make them look thicker at a lower body or a higher body fat percentage. So you can see your abs at, maybe 15%. Well, I don't want to give body fat percentages, but at a lower body fat percentage rather than needing to be super lean to have a somewhat semblance of a six pack.
That's a good point.
Yeah. That's a double-edged sword though too, because like you could like really train I just remember we already have short torsos, so I would like do a lot of the twist, the Russian twist, and then like I felt like I was just getting thicker and thicker. Like the whole concept of like knowing what you're training, know what your goal is and train appropriately. I was just doing abs. I didn't know what I was doing. So yeah, I do think there's a time and place for abs, and I have baby calves. Man, I've tried to grow my calves.
No, you haven't.
And I like to think it was just genetics, but I know that there's a way that you could build your calves.
Yeah.
My dad sat me down for a calf intervention, I like to call it.
He did.
I came home from college one day and he was like, Tyler, getting pretty big. It's like, you got to start training calves. And he would just said it like very like nicely, but like, he's like, you got to start training calves. And
No way.
My dad was a big dude. Like he tripled 695 when he was in the military. And so from that day, I was like, all right, calves are genetic. Like I'm done training them. They just won't grow. And then I went ham training calves for years. And now I have pretty decent calves, which is moral of the story.
See,
well, you knew what you were doing. You were
train the muscle.
Intention. Yeah.
Train the muscle. Training to change.
Yes,
Training to
ma'am.
change.
Yes. Funny.
I think.
Wait. As far as parent influence goes, I remember my dad. He's like the opposite of yours, and I was in high school, and he was like, he like criticized my training. He's like, man, you better not get all big like those bodybuilding magazines where they put gasoline on the bodies to shine. It was just like a very interesting.
But that's okay. So that's an important thing because there's this perception that the second you touch a weight in the gym, boom, you're going to explode and get so bulky.
I wish.
And I know, right? I wish it was that easy, but muscle takes so long to grow. It takes so long. It takes so much consistency. It's time scale of years, especially as you become like a more advanced lifter. There are such things as like newbie gains, but
we all blew past our newbie gains.
That is an unfortunate thing. I wasn't eating enough when I first started strength training, Tyler. So I never got newbie gains.
I think I'm there with you.
Yeah, same. That's what I meant. Like
so horrible.
We all missed that window of opportunity.
For the audience, when you first start strength training, there's this window of time where you can put on a considerable amount of muscle. You're not going to look bulky. You're just going to put on muscle, which is good. Take advantage of that newbie gain window. Make sure you are training smart and not over exercising during that time, because in that time you don't have to do a ton of volume and like you can actually see pretty good results. So again, going back to being like intentional with your exercise selection and following a workout program, not just winging it, because if you wing it, you're going to lose the newbie gains technically because you're not following a program where you're going to like progress over time. But yeah, I lost the newbie gains. It was sad.
Also just eating enough. That's really, I think for me, I was not eating enough when I first started lifting, but I got my protein in, thank God.
Right. But
So-
then protein shakes.
Something that I thought about when Sarah was talking about protein shakes in the beginning, there is such a huge push for protein. Like you have to eat enough protein to build muscle, but you actually need like energy macros, like carbohydrates, to actually perform the act of building muscle in your body, right? Of course, protein is needed for the building blocks of the muscle, but you actually need carbohydrates to build a bigger muscle. It's like building a log cabin where if you don't have the workers to build the log cabin, the logs are just going to stay on the ground. You need actual energy to actually make that happen. And so when you were bringing this up in the beginning, people always pushing these protein powders, I think the profit margins on protein powders are so high. And so maybe this like bodybuilding culture just like initiated this obsession with protein intake.
Well, I think it's an interesting topic because obviously our worlds are a little bit different from the average person. But I can tell you when I first started lifting, I probably needed that protein shake. Because, you know, I was eating like a PB&J and like chicken tenders, and I was probably not getting that much protein. Like, you know, when you have like a whole foods diet, it's hard to not get somewhere on the range of enough protein.
Yeah.
But when you're eating, you know, a school pizza for lunch and PB&J, like I was probably not getting, I was probably 150 pounds. What is that? Like I was probably not getting 100 grams of protein a day because I wasn't eating that much either. And then you start cutting and then all that stuff.
When you eat enough calories, it's very easy to hit your protein intake.
Yeah.
Yeah. But most people probably aren't eating enough calories either, though.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I was on like the other camp. I really educated myself on like the bodybuilding nutrition at the very least. And I was eating like 175, 180 grams of protein at like 100 pounds.
Holy cow.
So completely unnecessary and not enough of any other macro. Like I almost feel like that should be like nutrition malpractice to a certain degree. It's like I was not only wasting money, but like my poor body was not digesting this protein and like not getting enough of any other nutrient. But I see what you're saying, where like there is a time and place for a protein shake. If let's just say like this average Joe's not into like anything related to repeat, animal based, all that stuff.
Just
and
eat
like
some ground beef.
I know, but like most people, like he said, are eating a PB&J. So like there actually might not be enough protein. So then yes, the protein shake becomes helpful. But for people who are in more of our community right now, they're generally overdoing it on the protein to some degree. Like they prioritize the micronutrient dense food so much, which is protein. A lot of the protein sources are very micronutrient dense, that they skimp on the energy macros. So
yeah. And also even in the repeat community, if you go too high in fat, that can come with the cost of all the good stuff very easily.
Definitely.
Yeah. There's just a huge push for protein. Like the more, the better. It's kind of like the same with exercise messaging. Like the more you work out, the better. The more you eat protein, not the better, right? Like it can come with consequences too, especially if you're in a low energy, low thyroid state.
Yeah.
And that's something that when I was in the peak of our like powerlifting, like I ate so much protein. Weighing like 130 pounds, eating like, what were we eating? Like 180 grams of protein?
That was your carnivore days.
Yeah. So protein is of course important, but we don't have to overdo it.
Yep.
Yeah. Tyler, what's your next point?
Oof. So I remember one day I went into the gym, and this was a really hard day because I learned, and you kind of always know, I guess for me, but I hadn't been doing a lift right. Like I've been kind of training it kind of like a powerlifting training. It was like a shoulder press, and I was going really wide, and that, you know, made it a little bit tougher on my shoulders. But I was like, this really just isn't training my delts to the degree it could. And I was pretty proud. I was training like 85s or 90, or I was supposed to go up to 90 the next week. And then I was like, damn it, I'm doing this wrong. So I had to go down to like 65s or like 60s. And it was, you know, I was kind of happy doing it because it's like, all right, I know I'm doing the right thing to get where I want to be. But you have to take that it's kind of a sucker punch too, because it's like, I'm actually not as strong as I think I could be. So I think the lesson from that is, this is something that I've said a lot in the program. It's like, you gotta control the weight, not let the weight control you. But it also goes along with what we were saying, like really trying to target a muscle, not a movement.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Be intentional with how you move the weight. Don't just move weight to move it, because that's where you can hurt yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you could even apply that to like not lifting enough. Like I've seen people just like bicep curl like 100 times, and it's like, that was so inefficient.
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah. Let's talk about like a sweet spot then, maybe.
You got to push yourself hard. Like you have to have, in order to build muscle. So again, we're taking a muscle focus mindset right now. We're not trying to run a marathon. When trying to build muscle, you have to have those hard reps where maybe the first few reps are the same speed, but as you're getting to the end of your set, the rep speed has to slow down because those are the reps that are actually building the muscle. That's the stimulus required for your body to say, okay, it's time to adapt that location. Tyler brings up a great example. The act of bringing water to your mouth, that's a bicep contraction, right? But there's not much weight loading there. And if your muscle just built muscle every time you did that, you would be huge, right? You have to have adequate weight. And so it's about performing the movement safely and properly while also not being afraid to load it and push it.
Yeah. So I'm guessing, Tyler, you eventually worked up in weight again once you went back down and fixed your form.
Yep. Yeah. It was just a matter of knowing that I was trying to target the muscle more than trying to lift as much weight as possible.
There's that ego again.
Yeah. It's still here. I'll just put him in the closet a little bit. Yeah. And I think a big point of what Ashley said, it has to be involuntary. So you can't just lift the water bottle and just start slowing it down. It's got to be so tiring that you can no longer lift the water bottle to your mouth at the same speed. You got to really grind that one up, that last sip.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Because that is an unfortunate thing. I think with a lot of women, they do like 20 to 30 rep sets of really light weight, basically just moving the muscle. And again, general movement is fine, but that may not lead to the adaptation that you're looking for in your physique, just doing a bunch of lightweight things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you really need to identify your goal.
Yeah. Yeah. But if your goal is to boost metabolism through building muscle and improving your physique, getting those hard reps in while choosing strategic exercises is the way to go. That's another thing I wish I would have told myself.
Yeah.
What's another lesson for you, Sarah?
Mine would go back to kind of the comparison conversation we were having and just thinking about like what was really influencing to me in the beginning. A lesson for me would be that if she has a 6-pack abs and she has boobs, they're fake. So something that I really, 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 really messed with my head when I was first getting into my fitness journey was like the idea of this perfect body of like this very lean woman with like visible muscle. But she still had breasts. And sorry if this doesn't apply to you, Tyler, but like maybe there's a male version of this. But it really skewed my view on like a realistic body image and also like what your health will be at that body fat percentage, because the women who are extremely ripped and lean most likely are not getting regular monthly cycles. They're not hormonally healthy, yet they appear so because they have breast augmentation. And so I wasn't aware of it. And so that set me up for failure because I had unrealistic expectations for myself. And then insert years of just feeling bad about, where you're at in your own journey.
And wanting to get boob job.
Yeah, literally like a phase of my life where I was like, oh, I must, like, I need to get a boob job if I'm going to do a bikini competition. And like, that is completely the opposite of like, obviously the community we're in now is very focused on health. And that's literally completely opposite of like what my goals are now. But so basically I would tell myself like, they're like, first off, a lot of what you see online is fake. It's edited or like they're being deceiving in some way or another. And second, like you said, you're only comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. So, I mean, I got this tattoo when I was like 15 and it says true nobility is being superior to your former self. So I had this goal of only comparing myself to like who I was before, but it's very hard when you're so influenced by what you see and you don't know the truth of things, and things can be really deceiving. So I think that would be it for me as a woman, is to know the reality of what a healthy body looks like versus what I'm being sold as a healthy body.
This is funny for me because this is something I'd never noticed, obviously not having paid too much attention to female bodybuilders. But so I go to a pro bodybuilding gym, and one of the first, it's hard not to notice, there's some, not a lot, of female pro bodybuilders there. A couple have like their IFBB pro cards. And you see these women walking around with 6-packs and then they're just huge tits. And it's so blatantly obvious that these things are so like they're so fake because it's like first of all, your biceps are bigger than mine. And then second of all, it's like there's just no way you could be that ripped. Like it looks like, and there's also a guy, and this is for men too. This is a more applicable point. There's this guy, Dr. Dorian Haywood, and you see pictures of him and he looks like a huge like IFBB pro. You see him in real life, it's like this guy does not fit through doors. So like pictures are obviously very deceiving as well, but it's like you don't understand the guys that you look up to that are huge are sometimes like this guy must have, his arms might be the size of my legs, and I don't have small legs. It's like it is insane. So just everything can be deceiving, and obviously that guy's he's using some help, but even like it's hard to have a perception, especially as a guy, and I still struggle with this, like to know who's on steroids. I don't think it's as obvious as there's no boobs to give it away. But
well, I guess now there kind of are, like man boobs are becoming a thing.
Yeah, that is true. Also, I would say for guys too, I'm a taller dude, like I'm a little above 6 foot. Generally, unless you're gifted genetically, the short kings, they have the advantage for putting on muscle because they would just, we each gain 5 pounds of muscle. They have 6 inches less of arms to put it across. So a lot of the physiques that you see look really good are like these 5'6" guys that just, that's their, everyone has a blessing and a curse. So it's harder for us to put on more muscle, but they will look better with less muscle. But we have the advantage of being able to put on more muscle in the long term.
That's true. I remember in the powerlifting club in college, there was this like 5'2" guy, and his sumo deadlift range of motion was like maybe a half foot because he was so low to the ground. So he could lift like 700, 800 pounds, but he was moving like 6 inches. It was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it applies to both strength and bodybuilding or hypertrophy. Yeah.
I think another thing along the lines of like not comparing yourself to someone else is not comparing weights used between different people. So like maybe you watch someone doing leg press on an Instagram reel and you're like 1, 2, 3, 4 plates. Okay, I need to use 4 plates on the leg press to build my leg muscle. Like that's not how it works at all. There's not a weight. First off, there's not a single exercise you have to do to build muscle, but there's not a weight that everyone can use that builds muscle. It's you versus you. And so today, what weight can you push heavy for 6 to 10 reps? Now, 6 to 10 weeks from now, if you can increase that weight that you can push 6 to 10 reps, that's what builds the muscle. It doesn't matter what Tyler uses. It doesn't matter what Sarah uses. It's you versus 6 to 10 weeks from now. Can you progress on what you can do today? And that kind of takes the stress away from comparison with lifting, because now there's no outside objective measurements of like trying to compare amongst different people. And then you feel bad about yourself, right? It's more putting in the work week after week. And then 6 to 10 weeks from now you can look back and be proud of what you've accomplished relative to your starting point.
No doubt. Yeah. The strength thing is actually funny because some of the smaller people, some of the strongest people I've known have been actually relatively small. So it goes in line with what you said about like this massive dude. You can be very strong but small. Like that's how I would almost identify as our powerlifting journey, because it's not necessarily a muscular adaptation all the time. Like there's a lot of central nervous system going on. So strength isn't always just like equal muscle building. Yes, you should get stronger in a movement, but it also is training the muscle, not the movement. And a lot of times when you're just going for, I'm going to put 10 plates on this leg press and push it, that's just training that movement, really.
Like when you're barbell back squatting, you're utilizing your lower back, your core, your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings. You're using your entire lower body. Whereas then if you did,
you're kind of using your whole body.
You're kind of using your whole body. And so you aren't necessarily targeting like one specific muscle. Of course, as you build your squat, you're going to increase that muscular growth. but it's pretty hard. It's pretty mentally challenging, and it requires a lot of stabilization to push really heavy squats continuously week after week after week. Like, it's pretty intimidating. And I put my lifting longevity at risk by really trying to continue to push that when it didn't really work for me. And so I wish I could have told myself, like, injuries aren't normal. Like, you don't have to get injured in the gym, and you can still make progress just by being a little bit smarter about what exercises you're actually choosing.
This is actually the opposite of what you said before, and I think it applies in the same point. This is that ego coming out of the closet again. And I was only because I was like, oh, anything above, like for hack squats, there's really no reason to go anything above 6 to 8. I disagree with that now because I am actually genuinely scared when I step into a hack squat. I think anyone that's like pushing heavy weights, like you are, when you guys go for a squat PR, it's not like a very relaxing thing. You're pretty amped up, and feeling that much load on your back is also, it's very like the adrenaline is rushing. And I hurt myself a couple months ago, and it wasn't anything serious, but it didn't hurt a disc, but I just like had a spasm in my back after, and like that took me, I was uncomfortable for a couple of days because I tried to go up in weight, like, and obviously you should just go up by like 2.5 pounds because that's really, you don't need to go up by 10 or whatever it is. But I think something that I'm going to use in the future is instead of going up 6 to 8, just going up in rep ranges. So going 8 to 10 and going 10 to 12. That way, when you come back and you add 5 or 10, 2.5 pounds or 5 or 10 pounds to the bar, and you are at 6 to 8, confidently that you can do that weight.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. And that also kind of brings to mind, like, there's more ways to progress than just adding on weight. So that's a good point. It's not always about like, let me throw on another plate. Let me add 10, 20 more pounds. It's like, no, can you feel that muscle more? Can you slow it down? Can you
control the weight better?
Control the weight.
Increase reps.
Change your eccentric. Yeah. Like there's, like you said, just go up in a rep range. Use the same weight. Yeah. Perform it even better. So yeah, I still check myself on that too.
Check yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that brings up a great point too, that there are multiple ways to skin the cat. There will never be, maybe if a coach is a genius and he knows who you are and he tracks your breath and everything you are eating, he can tell you the perfect workout program. But the reality is, like, when you're seeing all this conflicting information on Instagram, a lot of it's true. Like, I mean, there's obviously some of it that's just blatantly not true. But a lot of it is like, oh, like you should be doing higher reps, you should be doing length and partials. And there's context behind these things where it is true, but it's trying to jump around from program to program versus like, oh, I need to be doing this, I need to be doing this, is just going to drive you nuts, as I'm sure it has for you all when at some point. But like just having a consistent plan will get you 90% of the way there.
That's a very good point. How often, as an audience member, reflect, have you started some sort of workout program and then you see something flashy and new on Instagram and you're like, ooh, I got to add that. And then the next week you say, ooh, I got to add that. And week after week, you're changing your workout program and you're not actually progressing from anything. There's no perfect workout program. It's about being consistent with it.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes like the flashiest exercises too are just completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Like squatting on a Bosu ball.
That one's actually good. I think that we have that one in the program.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
No.
While juggling. So actually,
and blowing bubbles.
Yeah, you need to have Ashley hold the bubbles for you so you can blow. So you're juggling. I actually had a fun question for you guys, and if you guys want to keep going on any of things you can tell yourself, but what were some of the greatest victories you guys had along your journey that you looked back on?
Fitness journey?
Yeah.
My 400-pound deadlift.
Same.
I'm so proud of that one.
That's awesome.
I mean, honestly, like when I look back on my fitness, my solely just looking on the fitness part of it, I'm honestly really proud of myself because even as a young person, like you went through your insanity stuff, like that took perseverance, that took dedication and commitment. And like, that's a huge component, is being able to be consistent. And even though we were doing the stupidest things, it's like that shows a lot about you and us and everybody who can relate, is like the ability to commit to yourself in some way, form, to improve yourself is a huge thing you should congratulate yourself for, even if you made all of these stupid mistakes like we have. So I would say just the consistency over the last, how old am I? Almost 14 years is something that's a win.
It's a huge win.
Yeah, it's a win. I actually only fell off my fitness journey when I was told that you can't stress yourself out to heal. You have to be inactive. You have to lower your stress, which is like this misconception in the Reiki community.
Can we talk about this briefly?
Yeah. I'm not the gatekeeper here.
Yeah. I'm having to lower myself again. That was the only time that I stopped going to the gym. And that moment is when I became estrogen dominant.
So Tyler, I think that you had a similar experience. And it's not the same messaging with males, but this whole concept of like all in, right? Where you stop exercising at all, you stop doing movement, and you just eat as many calories as you can. That's like not a pervasive message, but it is still a prominent message in some areas. And we've had a number of people come to our course who were told that, and then they gained 40 to 60 pounds. There's a lot of health challenges that come with very rapid weight gain.
So that's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
So we were talking about wins though.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a little caveat within that win. There was a period of a year or two where I stopped training. And then honestly, it was very hard to get back in the gym after that because like you said, your ego is like, oh, I am not strong anymore. Or like, I cannot lift the same amount of weight. And so then you're having to like get yourself to get into the gym and you're no longer at the level you were before. You feel embarrassed. You feel like identity crisis almost. So getting back in the gym is another win then for myself, is recommitting to myself and reframing how I view fitness. But yeah, so I'd say going from a very skinny, eating disorder, weak, insecure girl to a very strong girl is my biggest flex in the gym. And obviously my perspective since then has changed. But yeah, I would say I'm very proud of that person. So how about you guys?
Oh, you mentioned this before. I just wanted to like harp on it. And you were like, it's great for you that you didn't quit. I think that's one of the biggest things for anyone. Like if you want to get to where you want to be, it's a lot less of like trying to do this, trying to do that. It's just like, even if it's 2 days a week, which is, I think, reasonable for anyone, even if it's at home one day, you're traveling, you have to go to a hotel. If you can stick to 2 days a week, you will eventually get to where you want to be. Like it's a matter of not quitting more so than it is, having the perfect plan or like diving into a 6-month thing. Cause I've done, periods where I was lifting six days a week. I've done like insane things. And those will get you slightly closer to your goal at a little bit of a faster rate, but it's like very marginal. It's not like you're going to be 6 months a different person. So it ends up being, and you're much more likely to quit is the thing. Yeah. So at the end of the day, the long road is the short road, or whatever the saying is.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. How about you?
I think me focusing on finally getting to the point of focusing on building muscle, I think was an important mental shift for me that I'm really proud of, where instead of just trying to burn calories, it was instead, I need to focus on building muscle. And It took a very, very long time for me to get there. And that's why I think I'm so passionate about sharing it today and what we have with Train to Change. The whole goal is to help you reframe your mindset and actually focus on building muscle, not just burning calories, because burning calories isn't constantly focusing on that isn't going to necessarily bring you to where you want to be physique wise. And so when I'm proud of me being able to make that mental shift as a young, insecure girl focused on 6-pack abs and instead focus more on building muscle. And that actually led me to a better physique and better body composition from where I was at previously.
You guys both mentioned, and obviously there are things we would change going back, but how proud are you guys looking of how far you've come in your fitness journeys?
Oh, for
and
sure.
health.
Yeah. So something I just thought about what you were saying is like, switching your mindset to building muscle is also takes an entire perspective shift of what your body will look like along this journey. Like eating more food. I mean, you don't need to bulk, like you don't need to go all out, but, you really need to think about your goal, because if your goal is to put on muscle, you're not going to be this lean fitness person all year round. Like that's not realistic and it's not healthy for your hormones. Like there is a certain level of body fat that is required in order for you to function as you're supposed to. So yeah, I've definitely switched my mindset on that. I have different people that I view as inspirational to me now, where it's more of like Kathleen, for example, like she's a mom and she lives and she's got muscle and she's strong. Like that's the kind of stuff I see now that I'm like, that's awesome. No longer looking at somebody because she's extremely, lean and is like flexing her butt on Instagram and has boobs and stuff. Like that took a lot from me, is to rethink what I view as like attractive and worthwhile of my pursuit and inspiration. So yeah, I think changing my role models and seeing myself where I'm at right now and being like, yeah, I'm proud of you. Like you're not, I don't know. Again, like who am I trying to describe as like this all being perfect physique, but accepting and loving myself all throughout the journey, having a more realistic expectation of myself and loving myself right now where I'm at, which is still working hard in the gym, still eating enough, still repairing my hormones from the years of damage. So like, but being happy at this place. So like, I'm not just waiting until I'm getting to a certain point with my physique to live and to be proud of myself and to go on the beach and wear a bikini. Like, no, I'm doing that now with who I am today.
Sarah, when are you going to the beach?
I'm not, but we live in Michigan, so that's irrelevant. But you get what I'm saying. Is like still living my life despite not being where I think I want to be, basically. Because I remember being in my own head.
We're never going to be where we want to be.
Exactly. Literally no. Like, not that this is a good thing, but I feel like a lot of people who get into the gym have some form of body dysmorphia, and so you never accomplish what you're going after. There's always something to improve. Tyler's calves not big enough. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's always something. And so that can really hold you back from living the rest of your life. So switching that perspective, and fitness is just a part of my life now, as opposed to being like the only thing that makes me worthwhile is my fitness.
That's such a great point too, because it's like it's the whole goal setting thing. It's not necessarily just applicable to the gym, but I remember doing this thing even a couple of years ago, being like, all right, I'm going to do this for the next year and just like get all this muscular, and then I'm going to be happy with my physique. Yeah. That never happens. If there's never an X equals Y, and then I'll be okay and I'll be happy. Like you're always going to be dissatisfied. I had, what's his name? Austin Current on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. And he said this thing, which I think is really beautiful. Basically said, when you get into the gym, you basically sign a contract with yourself saying, I'm always going to be dissatisfied with how I look. Yeah. And that is brutally true.
Yes. Yeah.
So don't hurt your health in a constant pursuit of things that are unachievable.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that contract has to be negative. It doesn't have to be a eating disorder, bad mindset. It's just a matter of you wanting to become a better version of yourself constantly. And that's okay. I feel like that's okay that you want to change yourself. Just like some people want to lose fat. That's okay.
It's not any different than trying to become a better writer or podcaster or anything like that, if you treat it in the right way.
Definitely. Yeah.
But when you understand that, that's when you can kind of avoid the extremes, right? When you understand that there's never going to be 100% perfection. And when you understand that it takes years for these things, that's when you can implement more healthy habits that are actually going to support your health and actually move you closer to there. And you don't jump on these fads and quick fixes that actually lead you to a worse place than when you started.
Yeah. That's one thing that I would go back and tell myself. I'm patenting the term gaintenance. That is my new thing. I heard Mike Isotel say it the other day, so I'm going to sue him probably. But I did these huge cuts and bulks like repeatedly. And actually it didn't really happen until college, because I pledged a fraternity and I stopped lifting because you couldn't lift during pledging. And I just got really fat basically. But I thought I looked good. And before that, I had been very afraid to gain any weight. I had cut in high school and had a 6-pack, and no one cares if you have a 6-pack and you're 165 pounds soaking wet as a 6-foot male. But so then I did these huge bulks and cuts. And I think that, damaged my metabolism to some degree, because, and not that it's irreversible, but I to get to 200 pounds, like, I don't know. I just felt like I was forking down food. Like I was just trying, like eating so much. And then this could be because I was just eating a lot more food possibly, but I didn't feel like that. When I graduated, a year after I graduated, I shot up to 220. I did not deserve to be, nor mean to get to 220 pounds. I was a thick boy. So I think you can, and cutting takes a lot of work and it's a lot of stressful in the body. You know, maybe you have to cut for a wedding for a couple, like, you lose a couple pounds and you're like dialing in your diet for a couple weeks, but you shouldn't be losing these 30-pound swings, or even, it's also relative. Like, and sometimes you probably should just be focusing on nutrition and metabolism in general. So and this is something I've got from you guys and Kathleen as well, is just like trying to increase your metabolism and don't just, go all into the repeat diet and whole milk and all that stuff. And there's no repeat diet, but you can, improve your health and your physique at the same time if done slowly and in the right way, not just doing these huge shifts over time.
And so what Tyler means by gaintenance is staying in your maintenance calorie range, trying to slightly push that up. That's where the magic happens, because the body is not going to thrive when we are doing these huge bulk cut. Sarah and I would have pictures, and I'm sure Tyler, you do too, of it's like, oh, she was bulking there. Oh, she was cutting. Oh, bulking. Oop, cutting. And something that we're going to dive in with Kathleen in depth in future podcast episodes is there are functional changes and consequences to severe deficits happening. And so with each of those, functional problems build up. And so instead, I love gaintenance. Being at maintenance is probably a very important step for someone. Figure out where their maintenance calorie range is, try to push that. And that's where you're going to be able to make so much progress.
Yeah.
I think literally all three of us could have avoided like nearly all issues if we would have just eaten in maintenance the whole time.
Yeah. It's huge. I mean, if you want to gain muscle at a faster rate, I do think you should probably go in a surplus, but it's so small.
Yeah.
Like it's like 150 calories, which is like a pound a month.
Isn't it 10% or something like that? 10% surplus?
Yeah, something like that, which I think might even be like excessive. Like if you can try and gain and I heard Mike Israel talking about this and I thought it was interesting because he said, basically it's hard to measure on a scale if you're only gaining a pound a month. I think that's fine. I'm okay with that inaccuracy because it's like if you don't gain any weight after 2 months, you just increase your calories. Oh, what a nightmare. Yeah. So, if you, as a guy especially, it's a little bit different for women, I think, because you guys don't typically want to gain as much weight. And I think dirty bulking is more of a male thing. Not that I ever thought dirty bulk.
We did that. We did that in our powerlifting. We did that.
Done did it. It fit my macros.
Yeah.
No, it didn't. It didn't.
But I mean, if you can gain 12 pounds in a year as a man or woman, which is especially possible in the beginning years, like that's huge. And then maybe you could have gained zero fat if you like have done that correctly, especially in the beginning. Later on gets harder and harder. But
yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
So the research basically shows, after you've been lifting for a long period of time, you're past that newbie gain stage that we all unfortunately skipped. It's most efficient if muscle building is your main focus. It's most efficient that you're in a slight caloric surplus, because that's a trigger to the body. Hey, you can actually spend precious resources putting on expensive muscle tissue, but there's no there's no advantage to building muscle if you're at a 20 or 30% caloric surplus versus a 5 to 10% caloric surplus. The research shows that the same amount of muscle is made, you just get more fat when you go like extremely high really quickly. And so again, as Kathleen, we all love Kathleen here. Hi, Kathleen. I don't know if she listens. Going slow and slowly increasing and just paying attention to body weight changes, because none of us are promoting a lot of fat gain because that leads to health challenges.
Relevant to this topic, can I add something that I wish I would have known?
Yeah.
You will build muscle and have a physique that you are seeking more optimally if your hormones are balanced. Yeah. Like I was not aware of how important it is for you to have optimal progesterone throughout the month or optimal levels of testosterone. And like, I'm not saying I have this perfect yet either, because years of damage requires years of recovery. But a lot of the people that you see who are like super ripped and stuff have imbalanced hormones. And the journey to building muscle when your hormones are off not only makes it harder because your life is harder, you have less energy, but you're also going to hold on to more fat when you're estrogen dominant. Like there's a number of reasons why your physique might not look like what it is, even if you're giving it all you have in the gym and with your nutrition, because there might just be a hormonal imbalance that's causing you to hold on to more water, causing you to hold on more fat or not build muscle at an optimal rate. So like, I feel like eating and maintenance probably would have avoided this hormonal issue the whole time. But that is another reason not to go into this bulk cut, because you're messing with your hormones at that point.
And we dug ourselves into holes at adolescence.
Oh
like
yeah.
the most important part
puberty
of your life.
Yeah. I mean, and that's happening. Like the fitness Instagram world is so prevalent. Like there's 12-year-olds who are like, yeah, it's sad, but if we can get this message out, guys.
One day.
Does that, I'm sure that pertains to males as well, as like obviously optimal testosterone and even
Absolutely.
progesterone.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I got into the repeat world was because I thought I might have low testosterone because I was seeing such little progress. So I was like, let me start. And I found Christopher Walker, who I used to work for, and started diving into these things. And it's really interesting because we are the only people that I'm really aware of that actually tie fitness and nutrition together. Because you pretty much have like I don't want to talk about anyone negatively, but it's basically if it fits your macros, then no one mentions micros. You have like a very, very small subset of people in the fitness world that actually know somewhat about nutrition, that you actually, your nutrition is needed to support your health, not just, your big biceps.
Yeah.
So having that integration where it's like, okay, having some beef instead of chicken and rice can make a huge difference in your health in the long term. Getting some zinc. I think actually I wrote a post, going to write an article about it eventually. I think Chris Masterjohn actually wrote an article that one of the probably major factors in the decline in testosterone in the US is due to an increase in chicken consumption, because they're getting so little zinc because everyone's eating chicken and no one's eating beef anymore, which is like no one thinks chicken's causing issues. And I don't think it inherently is the biggest issue, especially if you can get quality chicken, which is really hard to come by. It's a topic for another conversation. But like no one's like, wow, chicken's causing low testosterone. And in some sense it might be.
That absolutely. Even just like, I mean, I guess I don't know what the state of like the bodybuilding diet is anymore. I have seen more and more people on my feed who are more into the bodybuilding sphere using ground beef, which I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Like, I feel like, again, if I was younger and I would have just swapped out some of that chicken for the ground beef, that's a smart move. And for people who are listening, like there's just so much more micronutrients in the ground beef than just a plain chicken breast, or at least there's a different balance of micronutrient. And so, yeah, I guess that's where rotating your foods a little bit is actually kind of important.
Yeah.
So you're 25.
I think so.
Okay.
Wow.
So what are you most proud of when you were younger and making mistakes? And what are you most proud of today, given all of the mistakes that you've made and reflections and changes that you've made from them?
That's a tough one. So I think this is something, when I was younger, I think this is something a lot of women struggle with too, or like it's really a huge accomplishment for women. I think I couldn't do a pull up or a chin up. And so I could do an eccentrics, which is like the lowering portion. So you jump up and you hold it. So I was really strong. This was, I think, 8th grade. And I remember my cousin's boyfriend at the time actually bullied my friend. He was like, you couldn't even do any pull-ups. He was the senior quarterback. I was like, damn it, I got to do some pull-ups. But it was embarrassing. And so then I trained to I couldn't do a single chin up. I was able to do 30 chin ups, which was like kind of cool because it's like, that was my goal. I'd set 30, which is way more than I can do right now because I've gained 70 pounds and chin ups are a lot harder. But it was like cool to like see that progression. And and then as far as, what was the second part of the question?
Where you're at now, you can like reflect back on all the mistakes that you've made. And now you take a much more like balanced health and nutrition and fitness, well-rounded approach. What are you most proud of now? The biggest change that you made that was kind of one of the hardest things for you to like like, for example, you were talking about like ego earlier. What was the hardest change, but the one that you're most proud of?
This is funny. I was like you guys, I was very insecure for the longest time. And I was into these niche concepts in fitness. So I remember I was in a lot of pain for a long time. So I started looking at like into biomechanics and things like that. I was just continually hurting myself. And so I fell into the niche of like barefoot shoes. And I was like, these are like this is what humans are supposed to do. This is ancestral, blah, blah, blah. And it took me, and this was in college, it took me a very long time to work up the courage to start wearing those to the gym. And now I think I don't know if I'd go back to wearing them in the gym, and they make some nicer looking ones too. But like having the courage to kind of like do the things that I actually believed in, even though it wasn't what everyone else was doing. I think like having that confidence is kind of cool. And it's not like you just like walk in, you like feel good. So I was still a relatively skinny kid. Yeah, you just flare the traps and have your fur stick up. But like doing the things that I believed in that weren't necessarily what everyone else was doing. And then also, this never occurred to me till Sarah said it, but like I've seen a lot of my friends, and I got them on my program when I first released the original version of Train the Change a couple months ago. And the reason that I have so much better physique, because I started with the worst physique, by far the worst physique out of all my friends. It was very, very skinny. And the reason I have a better physique isn't because I have this magical training program. It's probably because all the roids I've been injecting. Kind of upset you guys haven't complimented me, but it is what it is.
Me too.
Yeah. I was laughing at that episode with Kathleen. But it's because I haven't quit. Like all of them, like they don't really stick to something. Like even if they do it for 6 months, like they don't. I've been lifting since I was like 13 consistently. I made my own like lifting plan like 14. I was in 6th grade doing Insanity. And it, not quitting is, I think, the coolest thing that you can look back on.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it evolves. Like you've evolved so much, but nonetheless, I feel like we wouldn't be in this place without making this mistake. So you can't. There's no reason to be upset about what you've done wrong. So.
Speaking of barefoot shoes, when you were saying that, I just like had a reflection back to Nike Shox. Do you remember those shoes?
I remember
those like thick ones.
They almost had like the bouncy tube looking thing at the heel.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember squatting in those. Like, actually, but then I ended up wearing heeled squat shoes. So
the Nike Shox. Yeah.
I've gotten Chucks and I haven't looked back.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah.
Basically.
Flat. I take my shoes off typically in the gym, and I just wear my socks. I know.
I used to do that too.
Yeah.
I also just find certain things are unnatural with that too. Like I remember trying to calf raise with that. And I was like, I just can't calf raise with this because I'm in so much pain.
Yeah.
Shoes are nice sometimes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Barefoot shoes are good.
All right. So I do have one last question for you.
Yes.
So knowing you guys, obviously, I think I suffered some damage, but I don't think like I never like seriously blame what I did in terms of harming myself. I'm sure I could be healthier. I'm sure we all could be healthier if we had started on a repeat diet with our parents feeding us Nourish cooperative eggs and all that stuff. But do you guys regret any of the things that you went through to become, to get where you are today?
I do regret my bikini competition. I especially doing it I did it. We had just gotten into fasting. And if I can look back, I'm like, I was really proud of my physique at that point. But then I wanted to take it, like I wanted to do the bikini competition. For some reason, I had it on like my fitness bucket list. And I do regret doing that because I did it keto. Doing any sort of competition like that requires you to cut to like a very lean body fat percentage and obviously low calories. And now that I've seen studies of what that does to the body, and I know you say like nothing's irreversible, but each time is like taking a night, like kind of chipping down the ice block. Like it does make a difference in your overall metabolic health long term.
I just meant for me, I don't think I went to any serious damage as much as I think you guys seem to have suffered some more.
Yeah. It's just, I did that bikini competition and then I went directly into a full year of carnivore, which without a proper reversal. So eating 1,200 calories and then only ever getting up to like 2,000 calories a year later. That was an entire almost 2 years of my life that I was giving signals to my body that I was in a starvation camp. And that is very hard to come out of. And so I do regret that because Ashley showed me many studies, like people who do these very low calorie diets, like their T3, their active hormone never comes back up naturally. And so there is damage you can do by going to too far extremes. And that's kind of what our page is about now, is like, don't make these mistakes.
You don't need to go to extremes.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm very proud of a lot of different things, but there are things I definitely wish I could have not done.
Yeah.
I am enlarged on the other side of those things, and I'm very happy with where I'm at, but it has caused so much more problems than what I would have liked to have dealt with in my mid-20s.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
I think that in general, strength training has been very, very good to me. Like, I think I'm very proud of going into the gym. It's given me a lot of like confidence in other areas of my life and like hard work, right? Like sticking to a program and being consistent and progressing week to week. I really regret not eating enough. Like I could almost start crying with how long I was not eating enough. And it has caused serious problems for me. And I really wish that someone would have told my younger self as a younger girl, like, you are a very active child. You do a lot of things. And in order to support that for your health, for your fertility, for your well-being, like, you've got to eat more food. I really regret not eating enough. I really, really do. And it's something that I think I'm always going to look back and have that regret. But I think it's one of the reasons why I like talking about it so much and trying to spread that message, because if I can prevent other young girls going down the same path that I went down, that would be a win. So whenever I have my future daughter, she's going to be well nourished, not encouraged to sit down all day and rest and not do anything, but
obese.
What? Yeah. But like the importance of eating enough calories. Like, yes, of course, food sourcing is important. I'm fairly certain everyone watching this understands that. But like the amount of calories you eat sends a signal to your body. And if I spent 10 years in a slight caloric deficit, just like constantly sending that signal of starvation or preservation, that's not how you thrive. It's not. And so I'll stop there.
Yeah.
I regret not eating enough.
Yeah. I think this is where is kind of what I was harping on. I never experienced any severe health consequences as a result of the things I did. Maybe that's because I was young enough, or I didn't go to as extreme as you guys, or just testosterone helps with those sorts of things. But so I don't have any regrets. Obviously, like, it would have been nice to know what I know now, because I would have, I'd be yoked and blah, 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 all that stuff. But, and I'd be in a much better state of health, because, now I'm going to really try and focus on building my metabolism. And, I wouldn't have gotten injured all the time and all that good stuff. Could have focused on other things instead of spending so much time in the gym. Maybe opened a book or two in college. That would have helped. But I don't have any regrets, because, and I don't think you guys would disagree with this either, because like I'm happy to become the person I am today and have gone through all those things. But obviously the whole point of this podcast is to give you guys the shortcut to go 0 to 100 instead of having to go through all these things that we did.
Definitely.
Don't make the same mistakes we did.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Tyler, not that like, I'm not trying to belittle females or say men, can't do any harm, but you operate on more of like a 24-hour cycle, and we're on like a full month. And so month after month after month of not ovulating, not having progesterone, like you're estrogen at a certain point. And so that's kind of where the problem comes in, because like from the repeat world, the harms of excessive estrogen in the body. So I'd say that might be why females might get a little bit worse off if they go to these extremes, whereas male, maybe you were able to bounce back quicker. You could maybe get that testosterone back up. So that could be why maybe you didn't have the same experience. Yeah.
Never know.
But I didn't also know you were a little spring chicken at 25. So you're so young.
Yeah. Well, you're in your 20s though.
I know, but like, I don't know. Once you, I'm turning 28. I just feel like 25. Like, just
guys, I'm
every
31.
year that
Okay,
passes
I'm
now,
31. Okay, all right. Let's not bring up age here.
I know, but life goes quick.
Yeah,
So.
It does.
Yeah.
Speaking of life going quick, to help you guys not make the same mistakes we did. And if you are wanting to get into the gym, check out Train to Change. It's something that we are all very proud of. And yes, this is a promotional ad, but we really think that it can help you move your health forward without making the mistakes that we did. And so there will be links in the description below to check out Train to Change, so you can train to change your metabolism, change your physique, change how your body functions, and without going to extremes, because extremes are not needed. And I think that that's going to be a big message of our Train to Change community, is we're going to help you get there in a way that is not going to hold you back from living life.
And this is just like a little taste of all the information that's going to be in Train to Change, like not even all the workout programs. There's so much value packed in this thing. It's going to be super awesome. And I'm really excited to see where it goes over the next couple months.
Yeah. So, any concluding remarks, guys?
Are we on your podcast or ours? Like, either way, thank you.
It's both.
Okay, well, thanks for having us, but I'm glad you were able to make it to our podcast.
That's it. Until next time, guys, be good.
Stay rooted in resilience.